Inazuma is here. We have new lands to explore, more content to grind, and of course, more waifus and husbandos to collect. There is lots to be excited about with this update, but for me, well, let's just say as usual, I've been studying, introspecting, and indulging in what could potentially be one of the biggest changes to ever come to Genshin Impact. The new artifact sets being brought with Inazuma are incredibly strong, arguably some of the very best this game has to offer. Each of them do have their pros and their cons alongside their ideal use cases. So, the question: which units make best use of these new artifacts? Which teams could they potentially bring to the forefront? And most importantly, are these new artifacts genuinely meta-shifting? Good day to you all, you Based Bluefins. I am the Immersive Fish, and using mathematics, theory crafting, and good old numbers, we're going to be answering all of this and more on this episode of Fish's Guide to Genshin. Kicking everything off, let's start with the obvious. What do these artifacts actually do? Firstly, Shimenawa's Reminiscence is the new normal attack main DPS focused set. The 2-piece bonus provides 18% attack, identically to Gladiator. Essentially, this means we can farm 2-piece Glad now without having to farm bosses, which is quite nice. More significantly though, we have the 4-piece set, and this is where things get interesting. If the character with this set equipped has 15 or more energy and performs an elemental skill, 15 energy will be consumed, and following this energy consumption, all normal, charged attacks, and plunge attack damage will be increased by 50% for 10 seconds. While the practical use cases of this are in a bit of a weird spot due to that energy consumption, it is a very significant damage bonus, totaling 50% bonus to normal attack damage and 18% attack. When comparing to other available artifact sets, it's pretty similar to Pale Flame, however, unlike Flame, Reminiscence can be used on elemental damage characters if they can maintain the high activation cost. Next up, we have Emblem of Severed Fate. Honestly, this is the set I was most excited about. It's just really solid, especially considering this looks like it's going to completely change how we build burst DPS units. The 2-piece is nothing special, giving a solid 20% energy recharge, but the 4-piece, well, this is where this set can potentially become meta-shifting. This set will increase your elemental burst damage by 25% of your character's energy recharge, capping at a 75% bonus. Extremely good, and while yes, 300% energy recharge is required to hit the 75% cap, to equal the current go-to burst builds of 2 Noblesse, 2 Elemental, you only need 140% AR. Keep in mind, running the 4-piece set without considering the artifacts themselves will give the unit 120% energy recharge. Basically, this set is really good. It's 2-piece Noblesse on hyper steroids. Further, as a quick side note, Severed Fate also does something which I think needed to be done really badly, and gives a slight indirect buff to energy recharge focused weapons. Not only are these weapons now providing more consistent bursts, but in conjunction to that, they're also dealing more damage too, which is, on paper, of course, really good. For a couple of the characters that really want to run Severed Fate, this is a pretty big deal. And with that said, let's get to the fun part, the numbers and the units that make the best uses of these sets. I'm going to start with Severed Fate for simplicity's sake, as the numbers are a little easier to calculate. The set is overall simpler, and to get this set to work right, core team rotations don't have to be changed. This is mainly due to Severed Fate having the highest burst potential of any set, essentially meaning that if a unit is burst focused and you want to maximize their damage, as well as their consistency, this is probably the artifact set you want. In other words, this is the new best in slot for Mona, Xingqiu, Shangling, and Bennett if you're choosing not to run him on 4 Noblesse for the team buff. Alongside that, it's also extremely solid on Zhongli and Beidou. Regarding numbers, my standard rule set applies. No artifact substats unless I state otherwise, weapons are refine 1, characters are C0, everything is 80 of 80, basically the normal stuff. If you're not 100% familiar, check out one of my character build videos. Lots of stuff to cover now, so enough stuffing around. Let's get into this. Starting off, we have the unit that currently benefits the most from this set. Implication is there. take of that what you will. This set is incredible for Mona, full stop. She is a character that wants to build for energy recharge already due to her A4 passive, gaining hydro bonus damage based on 20% of her ER pool. As multiplicative damage effects are added together, it essentially means not only are you getting a significant burst damage bonus, which mainly scales off one stat, you are building multiple multiplicative damage things together at the same time, both coming from one source, which is pretty insane. Starting with a 5-star setup, the damage increase is noticeable, resulting in a total multiplicative burst damage bonus of 246.71% on the new set as opposed to 228.76% in the old one. In total, this results in Severed Fate gaining a 6.35% damage boost over the previous set. This damage bonus is seen even more when an ER weapon is used, such as Wine and Song, with the difference becoming significantly more pronounced with a 9.01% damage improvement. Severed Fate is really good on Mona, and unless you've chosen to run her on 4 Noblesse for the team attack buff it offers, I definitely suggest looking at getting a set of this if you enjoy using her. Higher consistency, bigger numbers on your ult, and just overall a more fun playstyle is never a bad thing. Next in the testing ring we have Xingqiu, another unit who benefits significantly from this set if he is built as a reactionary support for Hu Tao, Diluc, or any other pyro unit that synergizes with him. That said, if you're building Xingqiu to nuke because, well, it's doable, looking at you, Senpai, don't use this set. It's not exactly conducive to that playstyle at all. So why does Xingqiu want Severed Fate over other options? Firstly, he's already running Sack Swords, so the weapon's energy recharge substat will contribute to the burst damage bonus. And secondly, because of that 20% ER added by the 2-piece effect, with a few good ER substat rolls, this set will actually enable Xingqiu to more consistently run an attack percent Sans, while still maintaining the 200% ER required for reliable off-cooldown bursts. When looking at the baseline builds, the damage increase here is noticeable, and will be even more noticeable if you're changing over to an attack percent Sans, looking at a 10.85% damage increase over the previous option. It's a really solid pick, and while it is harder to farm, the damage gained is significant enough to make the grind worthwhile in my opinion. Xiangling is the next unit to get the Severed Fate treatment, and from this point forward we need to start bringing substats into the equation. Xiangling needs to be relatively balanced stat-wise, so focusing purely on ER isn't really an option as it would result in a significant hit to damage. Basically, while Severed Fate does win out in this case, it will be to a significantly lesser extent. This test essentially puts Crimson Witch in its most ideal circumstances, giving it 1 stack so it's able to gain a total of 22.5% pyro bonus damage and increasing vaporized damage by 15% alongside it. Even with everything in the favor of Witch though, SF is winning out again by a massive 1.56%, which may not be much, but considering what it's competing against, I'd say being able to outdamage Crimson Witch in the first place is pretty impressive. The biggest plus for Severed Fate is that you don't have to worry about using your skill before ulting and worrying about stacks and things like that on the set. Even when the ER weapon comes in, it's still giving similar results with a whopping 1.57% damage increase due to just how incredible Crimson Witch actually is. Still technically better though, and if you haven't farmed Crimson Witch yet, well, now you don't have to. The same also rings true in this case for Bennett, due to a similar principle. That is of course assuming you're running Bennett for pure damage, which all in all I personally wouldn't recommend. 4NO is still probably the best option for him. But hey, you've got other options now. Now it's time to go through the most controversial user of the Emblem of Severed Fate, Beidou. To clear the air right at the start and set precedents, yes, this set does have a higher burst damage ceiling on Beidou's ult cast and each discharge. When built correctly, this means that over time, when considering multiple instances of the discharge, it will end up beating out the previously available power ceiling by a pretty solid margin. Assuming that the ult is able to hit the maximum number of 12 discharges with a C2 fighting against 12 enemies, a lot of setup there I know, but just work with it in this case, it is possible to pull a total of 60 individual procs of ult damage. So the small 2.51% damage increase is on every single damage instance, all 60 of them. In other words, a 2.51% increase is equivalent to 13,500 damage. That's not an insignificant number. Now, with that said, here is the painful part. Counters take a noticeable hit of 8.35%. In other words, if you are using counters a lot and have gotten very good at hitting your perfect parries, the old set may outweigh the value, especially if you're pre-C2. Further, like all the other characters using Severed Fate, it is most effective when stacking ER on Beto, but stacking insane amount of energy recharge will generally have a net negative on this character regarding damage. She does need a good balance of offensive stats, such as crit and attack. The main benefit to this set is providing that extra ER, which you're going to be building anyway, but you generally don't need as much as most people say. Beto doesn't actually have the ER issues that a lot of people think she does, even though she has an 80 cost ult. All in all, this set on Beto will come down to one thing and one thing alone: playstyle. If you like your counters, maybe avoid it. If not, unless your substats are garbage, it's definitely worth a switch, in my opinion. And as a quick side note, if you choose to run Beto with Electro MC, Severed Fate really comes into its own. MC boosts the effect of Severed Fate, produces more energy particles, meaning less counters are required from Beto, and gives you access to Electro Resonance, meaning more energy recharge. They work really well together, so definitely give it a chance. Maybe video coming on Electro MC soon, I don't know. I'll see how things go. Finally, and purely for fun, because you have not seen enough of him yet, you must see more. Guizhong has another set which works on him, and this is the simplest number-wise. 2 AP, 2 NO provides a 35% burst damage bonus, 15% of which is drawn from additional geo bonus damage. 160% energy recharge gives a 40% burst damage on 4 SR. Again, nothing too massive, seeing a 2.5% damage increase over the previous best, but I mean, hey, it also means there's more viability running a weapon like Favonius Lance. The same build comparison when using said weapon giving a 5.9% damage increase. It's good, as pretty much everything else is on Zhongli. It's Zhongli. He does everything well. Now on to Shimenawa's Reminiscence. This one is the painful one, as we have to discuss things that aren't related to just damage to neutralize the energy consumption on skill cast and stuff like that in a way which isn't too impactful on units, so that they can still rely on their bursts if that needs to be done, and that's the main difficulty with Shimenawa. Is it good? Yes. Are you gonna have to change core damage rotations? Most likely. I'll go more into depth with that, but let's start off simple. Ganyu. So, Ganyu has a new on-paper best set. I'm not happy about that personally, given it pushes a unit that already power creeps most of the stuff in the game even harder, but hey, Ganyu players, I guess you're happy for what that's worth. Last I checked, a 19.95% damage increase for the charge shot and a 16.2% damage increase on the AoE is pretty bloody significant when compared to Wanderer's Troop, meaning this is the best set full stop for Melt. I will quickly say that the results for this set will vary depending on a couple of factors, mainly playstyle. For pure freeze teams, due to the effect which 4 Blizzard Strayer has, giving such an insane amount of crit rate alongside Ganyu's ult contributing to cryo application requirements of said team, it's very much going to come down to personal choices regarding whether you use this set or not. While on paper, yes, Shimenawa does have a higher damage ceiling, if it's not properly built around, it could potentially lessen Ganyu's ult uptime, which is kind of required for permafreeze. If you are melting her hits though, as I said earlier, it's just a no-brainer, further solidifying her position as the best DPS in the game. Again. Moving on from a character that makes me desire death more than not getting a single usable artifact in 20 condensed, we have Hu Tao. Shimenawa's Reminiscence had a far larger effect than I was expecting for Liyue's favorite prankster, especially considering that we are vaporizing reactions with one set of Crimson Witch again. Basically, again, this is another situation where Crimson Witch is as favored as possible, and even then, SR comes out on top for the standard combo array, seeing a 3.68% increase on N1Cs, a 3.98% increase on N2Cs, and a 4.23% increase on N3C combos respectively. The big downside here does appear to go to the burst though, taking a pretty noticeable hit of 21.62%. But over the course of a standard Hu Tao rotation, in general when she's ran as a normal attack focused character, the burst is seen as being supplementary when available. Further, if you consider all 81 frames that an N2C combo takes to execute and divide it by the 540 frames of uptime that her elemental skill provides, Hu Tao has the ability to normal attack combo 6.66 times. Just gonna round down to 6 for the sake of simplicity for the numbers, meaning roughly roughly every single N2C combo string, all 6 of them, is gaining 15,060 damage over the Crimson Witch setup, which more or less equalizes the damage loss from the burst and is output in a significantly more consistent manner. Basically, it makes rotation simpler, which is really nice. The cool part about this, and this is more or less a separate section, is that all the principles from here apply to other infusion-based DPSs, which aren't A, physical, or B, pyro characters which can gain 3 stacks of Crimson. Yeah, Diluc doesn't want this setup, what was I gonna say? In other words, Keqing gains more of a buff from this set than Hu Tao does, meaning she finally got a buff in a sense, which is pretty cool depending on if you play her or not. Now, we get to the final character. While it requires a significant playstyle change, Xiao gets some pretty insane value from Shimenawa's Reminiscence, if he is pre-C6. But on top of all that, there is a catch. Starting off though, let's talk numbers. And for charge attacks, plunge contact, low and high plunge AoE effects, all damage sees an increase of 13.72%. This is big to say the least, especially considering you're only taking a hit of 8.64% on the dash. On paper, it sounds really good. And it is, but the catch does come into play here. Shimenawa's Reminiscence is going to require a core change to his rotation in order to make the set viable. Basically, while it does improve his damage by a significant margin, a whole Xiao rotation becomes significantly more reliant on other units and energy recharge substats in order to get to a point of energy neutrality. In other words, his new rotation becomes use Anemo Battery's skill, switch to Xiao before particle absorption, double dash, ult before the dash particles are collected but after the Anemo Battery's particles are collected, then during his ult at some point do a single dash to make sure you're getting maximum value from the set buff. Further, and just a little additional point, if you aren't 100% convinced on 4 Shimenawa's Reminiscence, you can farm the 2-piece for Xiao. It can replace your Gladiator, and it essentially is just easier to farm, so overall you're more likely to get better stuff with it. It's good. What else can I say? So, that's both of the new sets covered. It's a lot of info, and even this is skipping out on some other units which can make use of them, such as reverse mel supports like Kaya and Rosaria, generally performing fantastically on Severed Fate, or C6 Kazuha potentially truly coming into his own when built on Shimenawa's Reminiscence. The takeaway really is, though, that the new artifact sets are without a doubt some of the best Genshin has to offer, and while they don't necessarily work on every unit, those that can utilize them well will generally gain a pretty major upside doing so. They also both appear in the same domain, meaning while it's still going to be painful because artifact farming is painful regardless, you are getting a lot of value out of your resin for building either of these sets. Before I do head off though, I just quickly want to say 1,000 subs and partnered. This is honestly a place I was never expecting to get to. It's a far-off dream, more or less, that I thought I was never going to hit given the niche of what I do, so seriously, I want to thank every single one of you for watching this and for supporting me throughout all of this. I wouldn't be here were it not for all of you guys being passionate about maths about a video game, and because of that, seriously, each and every one of you are incredible. And I can't thank you all enough. Now we're all here, I guess it's only on to bigger and better things. So yeah, if you did enjoy, maybe consider caressing that red button that all YouTubers tell you to hit, because that's what you do, apparently. It'll keep you up to date with the stuff I'm working on. As always, links to the Guizhong mains Discord are down below. Hit me up there or in the comments for a chat. With that said, the market has closed and the port has settled. Go get some rest.